I'm Doug Munro. I'm the North American Merchandising Manager for Boortmalt. So protein, really what we're looking for and the brewer is looking for is in a protein range of 10 to 12.5%. Of course, then on the next box there, germination. So that's kind of the most important spec that we have is if it doesn't grow, then we can't malt it. It doesn't make malt. It's just non-usable. Moisture, of course. So two reasons for this. We buy a lot of barley and we store a lot of barley for months. So we do not want high high moisture barley in our bins. And also and I'll be honest with you, we really don't want to be paying for extra water in the barley. So 13.5 is a good point for storage for us. Then plump, we have a minimum of 85, and this is really what kind of drives how many beers we can make or how many beers the brewers can make out of our malt. So the higher the plump, more starch in the endosperm, more sugars after it's been malted, and then more beer for the brewer. Peeled and broken, or P&B. So really with this one, there's various reasons for this, because with high P&B, when we buy it, we lose a lot through the sieves and that. But if you think about how, if it's peeled, the embryo could be showing. So in the malt house, it's not protected, so it could be knocked off. Also, if the kernel's broken, you might have one end that is not even attached to the embryo anymore, and that will not get modified because the embryo controls everything that's going on with germination. So it's just a loss for us. So we avoid high P&B counts. Then again, on immature green kernels, typically they do not germinate. Also, it affects our malting because of it usually floats in the steep tanks. It's hard to get rid of, and it ends up in the finished product. Doesn't look very good to the brewer. And also, they're usually flat kernels, and there's no extract out of them. Varietal purity. So this is kind of a key point how we've done business in Canada for a long time. Varietal purity for us, every variety malts slightly different. So it's nice to have pure varieties. And then when it goes through the malt house, it's easier to malt. So if you have a batch of Fraser going through and you do a few batches, you're not changing all the time. The other thing is for our export market into China and that, they really like this because it also helps them to process the barley. And also they have different uses for the varieties we're selling them. They've talked about, and maybe you've heard it, where like Fraser might be a high enzyme malt, more for adjunct brewing. And then over there, even in North America here for Copeland, lower enzymes, maybe more for a craft. So if these are separated, it helps with the brewer. And then on the disease end of, on the disease end of it, our max on Dawn, which is for vomitoxin and fusarium head blight, our max is 0.5. It's pretty tight, but when we bring in barley that does have Dawn, unfortunately, when we process it, because of the moisture and heat it goes through, that Dawn number will actually go up. So the Dawn on the barley might be 0.5, but when we're finished with it, the Dawn on the malt might be 1. So then we're getting into food safety issues. And the same with ergot. We have our ergot limit is nil. So if we find it beforehand, we will not accept it. It's a bit difficult on intake. The usual spec would be 0.02%, which is, again, very tight. Okay. And then staining. Issues with staining usually is Staining is mostly caused by bacteria or fungus on the hull of the the kernel, and this can do it. Well, it negatively impacts the malt. Sometimes it's hard to malt because you're competing in the steep tank with the bacteria and the molds for oxygen and that. So the the actual kernel does not germinate properly. And then on the bigger side of it, when you make beer with malt that's been stained, you could get into issues like gushing. So that's when you'll, let's say you open a can or a bottle of beer and it just foams right away. That's generally tells you that it was poor malt made that beer and it was heavily stained. Uh, there's also issues with food safety on on stained barley. Heated kernels, 0%. Generally, with heated kernels, if we find heated kernels, it usually means there's been an issue in storage. We don't know how far that'll go. Heated kernels do not germinate. Uh, Typically, it looks bad in the malt. So that's the biggest problem is with heated kernels is it usually leads to other things that's happened in the bin. You might get more bugs, uh, smells, and also different molds and fungus growing.